My name is Luc-François Salvador. I'm the Chairman and Chief Executive Officer of the Sogeti Group, and I'm a member of the ExCom of Capgemini. In other words, I almost have two hats and two business cards. I'm 54 years old. I was born in Congo, raised in South Africa. So I arrived in France, I was around 20 years old, to do my military training, because at that time it wasn't clear whether I was a South African citizen or a French citizen. And given that war was going on, it was the apartheid time, I felt it was better to be French. And so once I was in the French Air Force, I touched base with IT, and very quickly I saw I loved that. So when I left the Air Force after 2 years or 3 years, I joined a company called Sogeti Exploitation, which was a very small company. We were less than 50 people. And in Sogeti, we were specialized, dedicated to data centers. My first job was to take tapes and to put them on the tape hanger. So it was more what we call today the infrastructure world. I had one specificity, which I spoke English. And 32 years ago, speaking English in France was not something very common, because I was coming from South Africa, which means that very quickly when the Sogeti, the CEO search conf, was looking for acquisitions in other geographies, I was part of the people who people thought of to participate to this movement. So the first 2 years I was a technician on the field, working with clients. I don't believe I was a fantastic technician, but at the end of the day, the growth of that market was so fast that my quality was acceptable. Very quickly, my management felt that I was more into the management field and the sales field. So with time, I evolved to being branch manager. I was the youngest branch manager in the entire group. I was 24 years old then. And then into marketing positions. Then I had my first experience in US, which was in 81. Then I came back to France. I became a division manager. And then the company in which I was went through a series of crises. We had 4 CEOs in the row, and one day I was appointed the 5th one. It was one of those moments in life, where you really feel very scared. I was in my early 30s then, and I was becoming a chairman and a CEO, and I was not very sure and assertive about what I was going to say. And we were going through a revolution. We were coming from a world of mainframe to the world of client server, to Unix. And suddenly, all the skills were in question. And what was funny, I realized with time that people were frightened of something they did not know, because they did not understand the vocabulary and the semantics. In other words, they knew the process, and they were very strong on that. But because the semantics was different, they could not understand their reference set. And what we did, we invested massively in training. We had one of the most ambitious reskilling plans in France at that time. It was in '92. And you had on one hand those professionals from the old world and young kids coming from the university from the new world, totally unprofessional. They knew the topic, they didn't know how to operate it. And once we trained and skilled the oldies, suddenly we built their confidence, and they could bring to this new world the maturity and the industrialization of the old one, and we made then a huge success. We became, in France, the leader of infrastructure and outsourcing. Then I went to United States for the 3rd time. There I participated to something very important, which was the merge between the Ernst & Young practice, IT practice, and Capgemini Group. 11,000 people joined us at that time. And it was a fantastic project, a fantastic idea, arriving at the wrong time. In other words, when we started doing that, year 2000 finished, the internet bubble exploded, all the big activity related to major ERP installation stopped, not to say froze, and the first war on Iraq started. So you imagine what happened. Capgemini was in shambles, and at the same time, in what used to be a traditional share of market, we saw that there was still activity going on, but we were the only one losing market shares because of internal endogenous issues. So the board and Paul Hermelin asked me to look at that with a few other guys, and quickly we came to the conclusion that the market was going to different directions, and those directions implied to have strong disciplines to answer to different problems. And the issue was to create a new discipline, we call that local professional services, where people would be able to build their pride on their identity, but not being subservient to other disciplines. Because at the end of the day, what we do in Sogeti is more at the end of the value chain than when you provide management consulting, for instance. And what I explained to the board was that in order to succeed, that we had to be autonomous on the side, direct access to our market, and give it a brand which shown that for Capgemini it was successful and strategic. And so we gave it the old Sogeti name, which was for me a way to combine a startup mindset and the strength of memories. I strongly believe in memories and culture. And we proved since the beginning to become the fastest growing division of Capgemini and the more profitable. We were 4,000 people in 3 countries, and today we are 18,000 and one of the big provider of profits to the group. We are in a highly cyclical activity, so when economy is good, we're on the top. When economy is bad, we get a strong hit, which was the case in 2009, but we surprised the market by our capacity of resistance. What we call today the Sogeti Group, which the board of Capgemini asked me to resurrect in 2001, is in fact very close to the values and the foundation that Serge Kampf, who is the chairman of Capgemini today, created himself in October 1967. So it's one of these ironic situations where we believe we are in a new world or in a world of new technologies, and somehow the memories of what we do date back from 40 years ago. We were born from the fact that there was a law passed by the Congress in the USA which imposed on the hardware vendors to unbundle what the service part, because a hardware vendor, an IBM then of the space, would sell you his computer and everything around. The everything being the service part. And you must realize that we're speaking about a world where IBM would sell maybe 10 or 20 computers worldwide in a given year. And so clearly the Congress saw that there was an issue of competition. And in order not to see a monopolistic type of situation, asked for that unbundling, and suddenly you saw services company created all over the place. That was late 50s, more or less. And Kampf himself felt that that was a bright idea and applied that in France. He was himself a salesman for Bull, which became then Honeywell Bull, and then GE. And because he didn't like the loss of or the change of ownership, he decided to create his company in Grenoble, in the French Alps. And he believed that his company would meet a strong success if it was built on values, which was something a bit curious at that time. You know, people didn't think of creating a company about values. They would think of creating a company with capital and then find the clients. And he edicted 7 values That was in 67. Those values are still the same today and irrigate the entire Capgemini group. And some of the fundamental values are known every day, like honesty, engagement, solidarity, truth, and so on. This value was the first brick of what we call the DNA. On top of this brick, he built a system of strong entrepreneurship. He felt that the business could be developed by cells, geographic cells. So I create a cell in Grenoble. I put a strong entrepreneurial personality on top of that. And this entrepreneur must agree fully, non-negotiable with my values. And hence, I trust him up front. And trusting him up front, I will demand from him a total transparency on what happens. And this has created the name was then Sogeti, the Sogeti Group, which with time acquired the Cap Group, so it became Cap Sogeti, then Gemini, Capgemini Sogeti, and today you know the story. This governance model and this set of values which create the culture and the identity has been kept alive very strongly in the Sogeti Group, and in my view, and that's why you hear a lot about it, explains the strength and the resilience of the company. Why? Because people build their pride on their identity, and if you come back to this identity, being empowered at the lowest level of the organization, in a world of trust, your natural tendency is to coach, recruit, and train people with those same values. So at the end, if you combine the fact that you have those strong values and the fact that those people have eyes and ears, and they see things and they hear things and they are in the client environment, you have a machine which generates permanently talents, and those talents tell you what happens on the market. It's a unique situation where an organization says to its people, tell me what should be my strategy because you're the one who see what happens. And this is what we did in October. We call that the strategic ASC, where 70 of the top management of the company was put together to answer those questions. And that led to the Imagine Sogeti project, shared today by 280 people. And what we want is to spread that mindset and even those questions and some of the answers to 20,000 people through Team Park. Now you must be aware that it's not the first time we do that. We launched with IBM 3 years ago what we call an innovation gem. We were the first users of the cloud computing technology, and we asked the entire organization for 72 hours to work on 4 major questions. An employee, what does it mean in terms of duty, rights, expectation in the company? What do you see about technology? What do you want to say about clients? And what do you see and you want to say about corporate social responsibility? More than 6,000 of our people participated to that experience. IBM was flabbergasted, by the way. This generated in 72 hours 52,000 exchanges. And we sorted that from exchanges to ideas, applicable ideas. And today, that movement of strategic ASC and Team Park is a direct heritage of that innovation gem. My convictions on the fact that everyone has something to bring to you is probably to do with my personal history. I was raised in a country where the color of your skin gave you your position in the society, but not only your position, but it took 1975 for the Dutch Reformed Church, which was the most important church in South Africa, to accept that black people had a soul. So you know, when you are raised in a country like that, and I experienced I went through the first incidents that started because young people in the white university started to reject that kind of idea. You see life in a different way. In other words, and on top of that, you live under such a strict censorship at the time. I'm going to shock you. I arrived in France in 1976. I was 20 years old. I discovered in France the existence of Nelson Mandela. I didn't know he existed. So that shows you how it was to live in this country, which I think it's correct, at that time had the highest rate of divorce and suicide in the white community. So a country where you learn with pains what it means, reaching to people. That's one point. The fact that I started in life totally uneducated, I didn't go to school, I didn't go to college, and at the same time I had the chance to find not only an industry that was booming then, but a company and at the top a guy who created as a strong paradigm. I'm not asking you what kind of studies you did in life. I'm asking you to give me what you have, and by the way, you will find in my company what you bring. And so, going through all those level of careers, and I'm not the only one. If you look at the board of Sogeti, for instance, you have 2 or 3 kids that went through prestigious university, but the majority, one was an accountant who was considered in his own organization are being no good anymore. One was a philosopher who suddenly took pleasure in IT, and I could give you a lot of examples like that. And so when you go through those kind of experience, you feel somehow not only privileged by the fact that you owe something to someone. In other words, it was done to you, so you do it to the people. And the religion of Sogeti in each one of its geography is that you give its chance to people. They have a right to err, by the way, freedom to fail, not twice on the same type of error, please. But we create the strength of the company from the fact that promotion, internal promotion is a must. And at the same time, we are very, I would say, we make sure that this does not transform in tribalism. Because tribalism then prevents good people who don't belong to the tribe to join the tribe. So this we don't want, but at the same time, we are very strong about putting the emphasis on this strong family, cultural set and so on. But if you speak to the Sogeti people, you will be surprised to see that it is a succession, like Russian dolls, of layer of identity. In other words, the identity of Sogeti France has nothing to do with the identity of Sogeti Netherlands and even the culture of France and Netherlands. And we not only protect that, but we respect that. But as you elevate yourself in the successive layers, you will see that all those different set of culture come to the top and in fact produce a culture from the diversity and the richness of those differences. And that's very important to Sogeti. And why I believe that this is important for its future, it's the capacity to adapt to any change. I'm convinced of that. I went through 3 different revolutions. I spoke to you about client server, but it was true from classic to mainframe, or from batch processing to teleprocessing. I can tell you new resources arrived. Today we have the revolutions on offshore, on cloud, and so on. But my conviction is that the capacity of people to adapt is linked to the way you look at them and how and what you give to them to support them in the changes. If you look at someone believing that he won't be able to succeed or change, he will not change, very clearly. If you have a strong conviction in the human soul, in the humanity of an organization, you will be surprised what people can do sometimes. There was a guy, I didn't know he existed, for 27 years he spent in a jail. One day he came out and he created a free South Africa. And he was alone in his jail. You know, the power of human beings sometimes is unbelievable.